Hey, Mighty Southland managers. Wanted to give some training on how to make a business plan, a simple business plan. Now, I call this a simple business plan because um, we're not talking about profit and loss and expenses. That would be like a very detailed business plan. In Vector, really, the main skill that we need to be able to do is to kind of make a plan on how to create a certain amount of business over a certain period of time, right? We make a summer business plan or a spring business plan or an annual business plan. And so it almost boils down to a recruiting projection, but let me give you the steps. So we start with one of Stephen Covey's main principles of highly effective people, and that is beginning with the end in mind. So you start with an objective. Like maybe it's to be number one in a particular category, a Silver Cup winner. Maybe it's to beat a certain team. Maybe it's an annual goal, have $1 million year. Maybe there's a particular contest that you're trying to win. Maybe it's a company trip or a super bonus or earn the president's banquet. And it's important that you figure out what that is. And then you've got to figure out some reasons why. The reasons why you want to reach that have got to be compelling enough. And that may be a conversation that you need to have with somebody else or have with me about, hey, here's what I think I want. And then we just kind of talk through the whys, because the whys have got to be compelling to, keep someone moving forward in the face of, obstacles or lack of motivation. How do we be disciplined even when we don't necessarily feel like it in the moment? That's all boils down to the whys. I was doing some research on, rallying a team recently, and this was one of the things that came up. I thought it was worthwhile showing. So how do you keep your team focused when they are struggling? Okay, or how do we keep ourselves focused when we're struggling, for that matter? And this goes back to a basketball game when Louisville and University of Virginia were playing in NCAA finals a couple of years ago. And Louisville was playing better than UVA most of the entire game. I'm just reading it. You can see it here. It was obvious to everyone, no matter what UVA did, they could not close the gap. You ever feel like that? You can't close the gap in your Vector office? But the coach kept his team focused. He did not come up with some radical new strategy on how to win. He just kept the team playing their style, chipping away, keeping the game close. And you look at the odds of winning. I love this graph. It shows the odds of winning. UVA was picked to win, but then this looks like not even by the end of the first quarter, all of a sudden they were less than a 50% chance of winning. And then it kind of stayed low, got back up to 50%. Then it went way down, kind of made it way back up. They must have made a little comeback. And then with just a few seconds left in the game, nobody thought they would possibly win. And then they ended up obviously winning the game. Just so long as you can keep your head in the game to the point where you feel like you've got a shot, that's the hurdle. That's the challenge that it always is going to take. What about your team? Okay, as a leader, how do you respond when they are struggling? And once again, the team is mostly us, right? How we manage ourselves matters. Do we keep them focused? Do we keep ourselves focused on winning? If not, then don't be surprised when we lose if we don't keep our focus on winning. The leader's role is to inspire the team, inspire himself or herself to win no matter the odds of losing. And this quote from Michael Jordan comes in handy here. Talent wins games, teamwork and intelligence wins championships. And then the last little motivational thing is just a simple quote from Vince Lombardi, who is considered one of the greatest football coaches of all time for the Green Bay Packers, if you don't know who he is. And it basically says, hope is not a strategy. And to hope that someone wins President's Banquet, for example, as I'm recording this, it's right toward the beginning. We just finished the first week of October. We got about a little more than 2 months here to hit something called the President's Banquet. So here's this questions we got to ask ourselves. How much CPO do we have to go? Once we have this objective and there's a CPO number attached to it, how many weeks? How much from the current team can I get? How much is needed from new recruits? What's my PPR going to be? How many recruits am I going to need based on that PPR and that number, how much we need from recruits? List all the training seminars. How many launched from each seminar? How many show to each seminar? How many set for each seminar? List all the interviews. How many signed from each interview? How many set for each interview? And how many active signed for each interview? Okay. May seem like a lot of questions. Let me go through and answer them for you. You can screenshot that if you want. But here's how you answer the questions. Okay. For example, if someone wants to go to President's Banquet, I picked an office in our division that's got a long way to go, but still within reason. So if they have $88,955 to go, round that up to 90K, and there's 11 weeks to do it. Well, let's say they can get 15,000 total CPO from their current team. Maybe that's 3 people that are going to sell 5,000 a piece. Maybe that's 15 people that are going to sell 1,000 a piece. I don't know. I'm just picking an arbitrary number. I didn't look at a particular team and kind of put numbers. And by the way you do it is take all active people, anybody you expect to sell anything whatsoever. And this President's Banquet is a new business contest, so you'd have to be using new business only. But you figure out how much anybody you expect to sell anything and put a number to what you a reasonable expectation, not a big goal for them, not something that's, super, non-existent, but what is a reasonable amount that you think they're going to sell, and then take that number and divide it by 2. And then you probably want to divide it by 2 again. Most people, we tend to, think so positively, our expectations are too high, but at least divide it by 2. And then that's going to be the number that and then add all those numbers up, and that's what you think you probably will end up getting. 75,000 from new recruits would be needed. And let's say someone's going to project a productivity of 1,250, which in the fall for the Western region, pretty good productivity number. In fact, it's a much above average productivity number. So there's going to be a lot of work on the back end to make that happen. But so that would mean that there's 60 recruits needed, okay, at this 1,250 PPR number. So the next step was to list all the training seminars, right? So you need to do this for your office, for whatever time frame, whatever business plan you're making. Let's say it's the fall and you're making a President's Banquet, but there's probably 7 people in our division right now that they need to make this President's Banquet business plan. So I listed out when I think the training seminars are going to be right here. Right? This one right here is a Thursday and a Friday because we have Leadership Academy on the 24th. Then we have another one here in October, November, and then there's no training. I have no training scheduled here for the week of Thanksgiving. Right? Then I have training here the first week of December. That's a 2-week cycle that's going to affect how many people I expect to have set for that. Then we've got one more seminar before Christmas. Someone could squeeze in another one if they choose to. They could launch like on the 18th or something, or Thursday, Friday, that week before Christmas. That's a possibility. So maybe there's one extra training seminar. Just depends on what you particularly how you want to handle it. Then I've got a seminar on the 26th and 27th. That's the that's the Saturday and Sunday right after Christmas, right? Christmas is on a Friday, and traditionally the big dance, as we like to call it, is a training seminar we do immediately the day after Christmas. It doesn't matter what day Christmas is on. Even when Christmas falls on a Saturday, a Sunday, Monday training, that's very common. So I have in here this Saturday, Sunday training, but I also have in here a Monday, Tuesday training. Now, a manager who really wants to maximize their fall and kick off the summer, and they have the staff to do it, since we're doing trainings with multiple offices together, this would mean someone would run training either Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, Tuesday, or both Saturday, Sunday, and then another training Monday, Tuesday. This is what I'm kind of advocating at this particular fall campaign. As long as we can get someone's dedicated to work hard to get the recruits in the door. If someone's dedicated to work hard enough to get the touches, this makes sense to me to do 2 trainings. And also understand that right around this week here, anybody who's going to be sending some winter mailers, the mailers would be arriving sometime in this general area, which would affect this class, and then one more class before Christmas if someone were to do it, and also these 2 classes. So it's just things to think about when it comes to how those training seminars are done. And by the way, if you're up here in October and you haven't already thought this through, at least started to think it through, then you're way behind. Okay, you're way behind. When it comes to building around holidays and things that could be potential momentum breakers, several weeks of thinking about it ahead of time and making a plan matters. Then you got how many launch from each seminar? Well, I just have some numbers here: 5, 6, 7, 7, 7, 6, 10. This is a 2-week cycle. 8, 7, and 8. These might be low if we're going to have a bunch of mailers sitting in here. Now, it's not like we're going to launch 30 or 40 mailers like we do in the summer. We might get 5 or 10 mailers that we launch in this training class here, and then those 10 would actually be even aggressive. But then some of those mailers that we get, we could have we have PRs from those, right? All of our advertising that we're going to be doing for holiday work, our holiday help advertising on our social media posts and things like that should be able to drive a couple of decent classes. If we can get a 10 and an 8 and a 7 here, then this one will take care of itself from the PRs from these. And the reason I have this 26th and 27th is that this would be the best time to train them. However, you're going to have some reps that are going to be in a situation where they're out of town or it just doesn't make sense for them to be able to do training that Saturday, Sunday. So that's why we have this backup seminar here. I don't really want to make people who I'm recruiting the week before Christmas to wait all the way till the week, you know, the second part of this week that we're in. So that's just kind of some philosophies on why we do it that way. Anyway, this is a total of 71 launch. Now we were only trying to launch 60. This is 71, but you got to understand these people launch, and basically they launch in that midnight, the night that they launch. That's the only sales that will count. So if they don't do appointments or only do one appointment or two appointments, that's first night. They're not going to get a 1,250 productivity. So that's why this number 71 is a little bit different than the 60. Then we want to talk about, well, how many set for each seminar? Well, using a 45% show and a 65% launch, that means for every 3.42 people we have set, we're going to get a launch. Set for training, we're going to get a launch based on these two numbers, which is about what we tend to get in Southland. Okay, so your numbers, you might think your numbers are going to be better than that. You can feel free to adjust this if you want, but these are just some numbers that are somewhat safe for most offices. So that means I need 17 set for training, 20 set for training, 24, 24, 24, 20, 34. You see what the numbers that we need set for training. Now that might be a lot more numbers than some offices are getting right now. And if that's the case, that's why you got to have that why that be important enough to you. If that objective and the why behind the objective is not important enough, there won't be enough motivation to work someone's tail off to get these numbers and make these numbers happen. So then we need to figure out, okay, how many sign from each interview? Well, if I have 7 interviews in this cycle, and some of these I have 12 in this cycle because it's a 2-week cycle, and I have 14 in this cycle. This is from before Christmas till after Christmas for both of these trainings. 14 was a number. It's not a completely arbitrary number, but it's a number based on probably how most people's interview schedule is going to be around Christmas. And yours might be 1 or 2 higher or even 1 or 2 lower. But if I have 7 interviews per cycle, I need 2.4 people signed each interview. Okay, so, and here's the numbers for each one. These are some, to sign 3.5 per interview, and here's 4 per interview. Of course, this is when mailers, we'd have more mailers and holiday help, and we can really push hard on the social media just to get the word out there that there's holiday positions. There'll be people that normally might not apply for work that would apply if we're pushing the right buttons here. So some of these numbers might look intimidating, but anybody can schedule 4 people in an interview. Just can you put together back-to-back interviews where we're scheduling an average of that 3.9 number. Then how many do we need set? Well, basically using, I can't remember the ratio that I used. Oh, I remember. I looked at Web and Craigslist. Web and Craigslist take like 9.9 for Craigslist. 9.9 people set for an interview to have someone signed at an interview. Okay, that's Craigslist. The Web is 5.2 people set for the interview to have somebody sign for the interview because the show is lower and the kept is lower, etc. But for PRs, it's 2.5, and for social media, it's 2.5. So I actually used a ratio of 3.5 for this. So if I have 3.5 people scheduled for an interview, set for an interview, I will sign that number that I had on the slide, this slide before. Okay, so that's the ratio that I use, 3.5, and that only works if the majority of the people that we're scheduling are active set people. If we're relying on Craigslist and Web to do the setting, then it's going to be not nearly as good. Okay, so active set per interview. This is what I need. I need 5 set per interview, 7 set per interview, 9 set per interview, 11 set per interview. This is the number of active people in order to reach those numbers that we have set. How many active set plus mailer, by the way, for people who send out the mailers. This is the numbers that we need. This is a very challenging number, but once again, it's about, am I willing to ramp up and do the work to make these things happen? And I'm going to break this down a little bit further and let you know that to get these numbers, in almost every case, all it takes is 3 people on your team setting 4 per day to make all those numbers happen. So that's a number that people can do on social media. That's a number that people can do. And this includes Conveyor, Office Conveyor PR setting, calling PRs, going back to training classes in January and February and March before we even were in a pandemic, and all those people that are unreached Conveyor and lost text messages, and even people that said they weren't interested. Hey, just a quick text message to say, hey, we had some job openings we offered you back in, or we offered you an interview for some job openings we had back in February. And at the time you said you weren't interested. Not sure what your situation is now, but all of our work is completely 100% online. put together just a little message and just reach out to them. You know, you might have to send 30 or 50 of those people to have one person set for an interview, but there is a way to do it. The point is there is a way to set 4 people per day and to get 3 people to do that. And that's pretty much what it would take to have a recruiting plan that fits, you know, take somebody that's only about 10 grand in sales for all of September and the first week of October, and to put them into contention for going to the President's Banquet. And I don't know what motivates you. I don't know if you can perform at that level, but here's the thing: if you don't think you can, or your confidence isn't there, you're going to be right. And you know, if you think you can, you think you can't, you're right. You've heard that saying. I think it was Henry Ford gets credit for that saying, whether it was actually him or not, that said it. But you will only be able to perform at a level consistent with how you see yourself. Okay, so if you don't see yourself as someone that can set 4 people per day, right, or have 3 people on your team to set 4 people per day, then the chances of doing anything that I just went over are none. It all goes back to, what is the objective and why is that objective important to me? Okay, it goes all the way back to that. Same thing with our reps, you guys. We can teach our reps how to make a plan like this, but it's got to go back to, what is the objective and why is that objective important? That's the only leverage that we can use with ourselves to get us to execute the things we need to do. And that's the leverage that we can use with reps, or reps can use with themselves, or we can use with reps to help them to get them to do the things that they need to do. 3 people, setting 4 people per day, that'll get you 90 grand in the next 11 weeks. And that would be very exciting. I mean, you could look at the money, you could look at the recognition, you could just look at your confidence going into the new year, and there's all kinds of things you can make a long list of 20 or 30 reasons why whatever that objective is important to you, and just figure out what it is that makes it important enough, and we'll get the job done. There's quick tips on making a plan. Hopefully that was helpful.